What's going on, guys? My name's Theatrix and welcome to my complete level 1 to 99 Slayer guide. Slayer is a skill that's trained by killing monsters that are assigned as tasks from various Slayer masters. Leveling it up unlocks monsters that you can't normally deal damage to, with some higher level Slayer monsters being some of the greatest moneymakers in the game. This guide will take you through all of the basics and knowledge of Slayer, as well as tips, items, and mechanics that you need to know to train effectively. I'll be going over 5 main training styles of Slayer. If you miss anything or need to freshen up your knowledge on something more specific, all of the timestamps are in the description down below. Training your Slayer level is a great skill for your account for a number of reasons. On your way to level 99 Slayer, you'll get or be very close to level 99 in a lot of the combat stats. Also, you can take advantage of the massive damage and accuracy boosts of the Slayer mask, which gives higher XP rates than attacking normal monsters. Speaking to one of the 8 Slayer Masters will assign you with a number of a certain monster to kill. This is called a Slayer task, and you can only have one Slayer task at a time. Upon getting your first Slayer task, you'll receive an enchanted gem, which allows you to check your current Slayer task as well as how many you have to kill. Each Slayer Master in Old School assigns monsters from their own task list, and higher level masters give harder and longer tasks. Some Slayer monsters require items and gear in order to be able to kill them. For example, kilowatts, you need to be wearing insulated boots. These items can all be bought from any Slayer Master. Upon killing a monster on your Slayer task, you receive Slayer XP equivalent to the total number of hit points that the monster has. So this means you'll need to deal around 13 million damage points to your Slayer task monsters to get level 99 Slayer. By right-clicking any Slayer Master, you can view the available Slayer rewards, and these range from new task unlocks to item unlocks and Slayer perks, but I'll talk a lot more about these further in the video. There are currently 8 Slayer Masters. 2 of them have no Slayer or combat level requirement, while the rest gradually move their way up in combat requirement. Each Slayer Master has its own benefits and reasons for choosing to get tasks from them. These are the most important things you need to know about the Masters. Turael can be used to replace another harder Slayer task at the expense of resetting your Slayer task streak. Krystilia assigns Slayer tasks that can only be completed within the wilderness, and her tasks have a separate task streak to regular Slayer. Despite she has no requirements, she assigns very difficult tasks, so even as a level 3, you could get something really hard like Black Dragons. Maz Shana is a good option for low-level players since he'll mostly assign Slayer tasks in the Mauritania Slayer Tower or close by to him. The guy you first meet on Tutorial Island, Vanica, he fills the gap between 40 and 70 combat. There's Cheldar, with level 70 combat, the first master that gives a good amount of Slayer points per task. There's the newly introduced Konar, assigning Slayer tasks at a specific location with a twist of dropping keys to the Brimstone chest that has a range of rewards useful for IRONMAN. Neve, or Steve if you've done Monkey Madness 2, assigns high-level tasks and is one of the only 3 Slayer Masters that can assign boss tasks, which leads me to the last Slayer Master requiring 100 combat and 50 Slayer, Duradel. Slayer itself can be started at any combat level and has no requirements to start, apart from being a member. Leveling the skill up is a great way to train at any combat level, but to be effective and get fast Slayer XP, I recommend having at least a combat level of 70 using Cheldar. There's a large variety of quests in Old School that will contribute to speeding up your Slayer XP, as well as unlocking new tasks and teleports. On the screen right now are all the quests that unlock new Slayer tasks. As you can see, there's 2 categories, recommended and optional. You should definitely do the recommended quests since those monsters are vital for getting the fastest possible XP rates. The optional ones, they're actually more likely to slow down your XP rate with more tedious tasks. So these ones should be avoided unless you've already done the quest or you're going for the quest cape. There's also a range of quests that unlock things very useful for your Slayer training. First and foremost, completing the Dwarf Cannon quest allows you to use the Dwarf Multi-Cannon, which considerably speeds up the efficiency of Slayer. The Lost City, Priest in Peril, and Shiloh Village quest all unlock different Slayer Masters. Fairy Ring teleportation from Fairy Tail Part 2 is extremely useful in Slayer, and the Elemental Shield from the Elemental Workshop is needed for Wyverns, Lunar Diplomacy can allow you to use NPC contact, allowing you to contact your Slayer Masters from anywhere. And I also highly recommend completing the Slug Menace quest to unlock the full Proselyte armor set. For new or low level players, by completing the Varrock Museum quiz, you can gain 1000 Slayer XP, which takes about 5 minutes to do. I really recommend doing this at a low level as it takes you straight to level 9 Slayer. To get started on that, make your way downstairs in the Varrock Museum. Along with the quest, there are 3 non-combat skills I recommend you train in order to speed up your Slayer. Firstly, having a high construction level with a complete player-owned house will really increase your efficiency. On the screen, I've included the most important house components when relating to Slayer. The most noteworthy one is the Occult Altar for swapping between Ancients and Lunars for bursting and NPC contact. With 54 crafting, you can create the Slayer Helmet, and that also costs 400 Slayer points at any Slayer Master to learn how to make them. Having at least 71 crafting allows you to boost with mushroom pies to level 75 in order to create Slayer Rings, which must first be unlocked from a Slayer Master as well. These rings provide super close teleports to lots of Slayer locations, as well as one right next to Neve or Steve. The final skill that can speed up your Slayer XP is Agility, and by getting 87 Agility, or 82 if you use Summer Pies, you would have unlocked every Slayer shortcut in the game. Some of the higher level ones can save you a lot of time in the long run, like the Fremennik Slayer Cave shortcuts, the Kalphite Queen shortcut, or the Baby Green Dragon shortcut. As I mentioned, you'll be doing a lot of combat training through to 99 Slayer. Most players choose to use melee when they're slaying due to its high damage and usually 0 cost per attack. Ranged is also a great option for those that can afford it, although solely doing magic for Slayer training will drain your money. If you cannoned as many tasks as possible, going from 1 to 99 Slayer, you'd get around 90 to 95 ranged. There are also a variety of tasks that can be bursted or barraged for faster XP rates, since they can be stacked and killed really quickly. Moving into the Slayer gear and weapons. Firstly, one of the most important items for Slayer are Expeditious Bracelets and Bracelets of Slaughter. The Expeditious Bracelets will overall shorten the number of monsters in your task by 25%, with 30 charges per bracelet. On the flip side, Bracelets of Slaughter will increase the lengths of your task. These are fantastic for a number of reasons. Being able to shorten your task lets you do tasks that aren't worth blocking or skipping but are still decent XP, whereas the Slaughter lets you extend fast XP tasks like burstable tasks. In terms of armor, first and foremost, you should at all times be wearing a Slayer helmet or Slayer mask. A Slayer mask can be bought off the Grand Exchange, whereas the Slayer helmet is an unlockable reward, as I explained earlier. The benefit of the helmet is that it combines the Slayer headgear with the boost of the Slayer mask, allowing you to use it for things like Aberrant Scepters or Banshees. Wearing it gives a 16.667% melee and damage accuracy boost on your Slayer task monster. The helmet or mask can be imbued at the Nightmare Zone. With 1.25 million points, it gives the helmet an additional 15% damage and accuracy boost to magic and ranged as well. When it comes to armor, there's 3 categories I like to place gear into: melee and range defense, magic defense, and prayer gear. I'm not going to go through every item slot, but I'll give you a good idea of how you should be gearing up for Slayer. For melee, at least Runite armor is best for ranged and melee defense, and you should focus on increasing your strength bonus with items like the Torso or Bandos chestplate. For magic defense, your best Dragonhide or Carol's gear works great, although avoid using Armadillo because it gives a negative melee bonus. And prayer, monk robes are a good start, then Proselyte gives the highest bonus in slot. For the ranged attack style, it's recommended to safe spot monsters that deal a lot of damage, and you can't be very melee or ranged defensive when using ranged. So for magic defense, most ranged gear, including Void, gives a great magic defense. And for prayer, Blessed Ehide provides a small prayer bonus with a great ranged bonus, or some players choose to use the God Vestment robes or monk robes for considerably higher prayer bonuses. For magic, it's best to focus on magic damage boosting gear, like the Occult Necklace, Tormented Bracelet, and Ancestral. You don't really need a defensive setup for magic, you should focus on a combination between prayer bonus and magic bonuses. Since your burstable tasks, you'll certainly be using protection prayers. God Vestment robes give both a magic and prayer bonus, as well as a lot of other magic gear like God books, God capes, and the Tormented bracelet. You should also try and get your imbued rings. The three best ones are the imbued Berserker ring for melee, imbued archers, and imbued ring of the gods when you're using prayer. Weapons wise for melee, there's two categories of training weapons: strength training weapons and attack or defense training weapons. For strength, the rapier is the best in slot, and for the others, I've made some of them in red so you can distinguish between the ones that degrade and cost money per attack. Personally, I think the Abyssal Dagger is a good middle ground weapon in terms of price and damage, but it really depends on the best one you can afford. For attack and defense, you have some better options. The trusty Abyssal Whip can be used for attack or defense training, but can't solely be used for strength. The Hasta is great for tasks weak to stab, especially dragons. And once again, the Sara Sword and Dragon Sim with the Dragon Defender are good cheap options. When it comes to range, you're gonna have to spend a bit more money since good ammo costs a lot. The blowpipe costs approximately 120 coins per shot, and that's only in scales. The Carol's crossbow is an awesome cheaper alternative, whereas a lot of lower level players in Iron Man will choose the rune crossbow with broad bolts or bone crossbow. As for magic, you should aim for staves and wands, giving the best magic damage boost. The Aram staff is a great cheap option now since it's only one-handed and also has a 5% damage boost. And for those that can afford it, the best in slot is the Kodai wand. Along with your regular armor setups and weapons, there's a few more useful items that you should bring along. Firstly, Guthans can be used as a healing setup. With the 1 in 4 chance of your damage healing you, it allows you to stay at your tasks longer and also make them semi-AFK. A better, however more expensive alternative is the Saradomin Godsword special attack, which heals 50% of what you hit plus 25% of what you hit goes to your prayer points. As I've mentioned, a Dwarf multi-cannon will also considerably speed up your kills. And in your inventory, of course, you'll need to bring cannonballs. I like to bring at least 1000 at the start of a task, and also when slaying for the best XP rates, you should bring along super combats or ranging potions, along with prayer potions, a one-click teleport, preferably to your house, and some high-level food. My favorites are monkfish, potato and cheese, and chocolate cakes, which heal 5 per slice. Moving on to Slayer tasks, and in terms of where you should kill monsters, it depends on your training style, which I'll talk more about soon. There are a lot of Slayer task only areas across RuneScape, as well as a lot of great Slayer locations that don't need you to be on task. I'm quickly gonna go over the best areas now. Firstly is the Slayer Tower, located west of Canifus, and it holds a wide variety of Slayer monsters that can be killed off task. If you go down the ladder near the entry, you can find the Slayer only part of the cave, with 4 different Slayer monsters. There is the Slayer only Calphite lair located west of the Shantae Pass and doesn't require a rope upon entry. The Fremenic Slayer dungeon located west of Relica or north of Camelot has a lot of monsters that can only be found in that dungeon, like Kurasks, Turoths, and Cockatrice. There's the Chasm of Fire, containing lesser, greater, and black demons, with a lot in a cannonable area. The Stronghold Slayer Cave, located next to Neve or Steve, used to contain almost every Slayer monster until an update a couple of years ago where now it contains 5 different Slayer monsters. And lastly, the Catacombs of Kurand, a non-cannonable multi-combat area great for bursting your Slayer tasks. While these areas are the Slayer places to do your Slayer tasks, there are a lot of alternative monsters you can kill on your task that will still give you Slayer XP and count towards your total kill count. Things like demonic gorillas can be killed instead of black demons for a far bigger profit. Greater demons count as the Zamorak boss Krilled Sutsaroth, and trolls can be done at ice trolls for great loot. Deciding whether you want to kill an alternative monster depends on your Slayer training style, whether you want XP, money, or AFK tasks, which I'll talk more about soon. On the topic of Slayer tasks, there are a few monsters that you might find yourself running past or going near that you should avoid at all costs. Aberrant Scepters, Banshees, Dust Devils, and Smoke Devils will drain your stats very quickly if you don't have their respective piece of Slayer equipment. So if you're ever running past these, for example the Scepters or Banshees in the Catacombs, always keep in mind that you'll be completely drained and might die if you don't have these pieces of equipment with you. Upon finishing 5 Slayer tasks in a row, you begin gaining Slayer points. The number of Slayer points you get varies a lot, with each Slayer Master, with the most points coming from Duradel, Konar, and the Wilderness Master. You get extra points for every 10th, 50th, 100th, with each one being a different multiplier to the base number of Slayer points. With the points, by right-clicking any master, you can view the rewards, and there's a variety of things you can buy. They fall into 5 categories: task extensions, task unlocks, item unlocks, buying items, and task management. Task extension is pretty self-explanatory. You can make some tasks longer in exchange for Slayer points. Task unlocks allows Slayer Masters to assign tasks they couldn't normally assign. You can unlock items like the Slayer Ring, Slayer Helmet, and its recolors as well. And task management includes blocking and skipping your Slayer task without penalty to your overall task count. In terms of unlocking these Slayer rewards, I advise a few specific ones to unlock first. The most important one at the beginning is superior Slayer monsters, known as bigger and badder in the rewards shop. This unlocks a small chance that the monster you kill on your Slayer task will turn into a superior Slayer monster, which has some very valuable drops, but more importantly gives thousands of XP on death, 10 times its hit points. These foes can be a little harder, and since they have more hit points than their normal version, each kill is almost 30 kills in Slayer XP, which is a lot. Next on the unlock order, you should block Slayer tasks, which I'll talk about in the training section more. But basically, you should choose tasks that have a high task weighting, depending on your Slayer training style. Then you should unlock Slayer Rings or the Slayer Helmet next, depending on your crafting level, then extending the best tasks for your training style, and if you're an Ironman, you can consider unlocking the Herb Sack or Broad Bolt making somewhere early on, as they'll help along the way. Moving into probably the most important part of this guide, the Slayer training styles. There's 5 styles I'm going over. Firstly, for beginner Slayer training, for fast Slayer XP, for the best profit, for AFK Slayer training, and lastly to farm Slayer points. The main thing that changes within each style is the recommended Slayer Master, weapon and combat style, where you do the task, and which tasks you choose to block and skip. For beginners, Slayer is a great way to get a taste of how the skill works, as well as get your Slayer task count up so you can start earning more and more points at a higher level. Before you start slaying as a beginner, you should have at least 40 combat in my opinion. A black mask and a cannon will really speed up your Slayer tasks. You'll only want to use Turael and Maz Shana at a low level. The fastest way to Turael is a Games Necklace, and Maz Shana can be reached with only Priest in Peril and by using a Fenkenstrain's Castle teleport tablet. Although you do unlock Vanica at level 40, he assigns far more difficult and longer Slayer tasks, like Blue Dragons and Bronze Dragons. If you're around the level 60 mark, he's a good option, and the fastest ways there are a Glory to Edgefill or using a Padawa teleport if you've done Desert Treasure, which takes you right into the Edgefill dungeon. The Wilderness Master is also available at level 3 with no requirements, but I recommend only doing that for Slayer point farming, which I'll talk about soon. To get to your Slayer tasks, these are all the teleports you should buy or obtain to get to the monsters the quickest. Fairy Rings are fantastic for low-level Slayer if you've unlocked them, and a few Game Necklaces will help as well. Now for getting the fastest Slayer XP possible when training, and this can be done through bursting and extending these burstable Slayer tasks by using a Bracelet of Slaughter to make the best XP tasks extremely long, combining that with an Expeditious Bracelet and a Cannon on tasks that don't have great XP rates, and then skipping the absolute slowest tasks, regardless of how profitable they are, is the best way to get Slayer XP. Also, since Duradel gives the longest Slayer tasks in the game, he is the best master to use for good Slayer XP. In order to do all this, I recommend at least 70 in the combat stats. You'll need Ancient Magics, which requires Desert Treasure, and you'll need to do Lunar Diplomacy for the Lunar Spellbook. Ancients allows you to burst multiple enemies at once, while the Lunar Spellbook allows you to use NPC Contact, making contacting Duradel almost instant. An almost maxed player-owned house is extremely useful here, since you can use an occult altar to easily swap spellbooks. as well as place teleports to the Catacombs of Kurend and a fairy ring. At lower levels, the Xanaris Slayer Master and Neve or Steve are still great for fast experience and will give similar tasks to Duradel with some variation. It's not at all recommended that you do Kona for fast Slayer XP simply because she assigns a lot in a restrictive area where you can neither burst or cannon your task. The areas in which you'll want to do your tasks are in multi-combat areas or cannonable areas. The best multi-combat place for bursting is the Catacombs of Kurend, which holds 2 Slayer tasks that I really suggest extending: Dust Devils and Necraels. You can also burst Smoke Devils, Abyssal Demons, and Ankus and Hellhounds if you get creative in the Catacombs. Any Slayer tasks that can be found in the Stronghold Slayer Cave, the Chasm of Fire, the Calphite Hive, and things like Dagonoths, Sakwas, and Trolls can all be canon, and the goal is to finish those tasks as quickly as possible since they don't give anywhere near as good XP as the burstable tasks, so you should bring the Expeditious Bracelet. In terms of tasks that you want to skip and block, it's monsters that are slow regardless of loot. This includes things like Wyverns, Black Demons, Fire Giants, Greater Demons, Ankus, all types of dragons, and Kurasks and Turoths. These are tasks you should skip, and you can block some of the high-weighted tasks like Black Demons, Fire Giants, or Steel Dragons. When bursting your Slayer tasks, you want to bring a fast attacking range weapon like darts with you to round up all of the monsters around you, and then you can use a wall to run back and forth and stack up all of the monsters to easily burst every single one of them. Now for the money-making training style for Slayer, and the basis of this one is you should not be bursting or using a cannon, and you'll be skipping the tasks that give no drops no matter how fast they are. You'll also try to be doing clues and bossing wherever you can. The best Slayer Masters for money are Konar, Neve, and Duradel, and more skilled players can make a lot of money from the Wilderness Slayer Master. Slayer tasks from Konar have a chance of dropping Brimstone Keys, which are used to open the chest near Konar. Inside the chest, you can get up to and over 500k in loot. There's a few extra quests I recommend trying to do, which unlock some very big money-making tasks. Cabin Fever for Jungle Horrors, Monkey Madness 2 for Demonic Gorillas, Dragon Slayer 2 for Rune Dragons, and I also recommend Lizardmen for killing Shamans. Tasks that make bank are things like Brutal Black Dragons instead of Black Dragons, doing Kurasks, Green Dragons, Ice Trolls, Aberrant Scepters, Wyverns, Gargoyles, and all of the high-level Slayer monsters. You should do boss tasks which are unlockable at Slayer Masters, and you should try to go out your way to do harder variants. There's quite a lot of bosses you can do on a standard Slayer task. Monsters that you want to block are things like Sakwas, Hellhounds if you don't like clues, Water Fiends, or lesser demons, monsters that have little to no drops. As I mentioned, you can do the Wilderness Slayer Master, Christilia, for a decent profit if you're good at avoiding PKs. On any wilderness task, the monster you're killing has a chance of dropping a tier 1 mysterious emblem, which currently goes for 165k on the Grand Exchange. Also, some of her tasks are really profitable, up to 100 green dragons, 60 lava dragons, as well as tasks for the wilderness demi-bosses. The next training style I'd like to talk about is AFK slaying, which involves either fighting aggressive monsters, monsters that you can stack up in multi-combat, or by using a cannon. Aggressive monsters stay aggressive for 10 to 20 minutes depending on the area and the monster. Some notable tasks that you can AFK aggressively are Hellhounds, Trolls, or Calphite Soldiers. Monsters that you can stack up is anywhere in a multi-combat area like the Catacombs of Kurend. Using a cannon, you can AFK for up to around 5 minutes at a time, just as long as the task is cannonable, which more than half of the Slayer tasks are. Defense-wise, some players choose to use their prayer setup, where they have full proselyte and protect from melee, which lasts around 10 minutes for 70 prayer points. Additionally, some players choose to use high defense gear or guffins for the passive healing effect. In terms of blocking and skipping tasks, you want to skip things like Basilisk, Gargoyles, or Kraken, things that require a lot of clicking and focus. Now I'd like to explain how to farm Slayer points, and you can do so with 2 different methods. Firstly, the Wilderness Slayer Master. As I mentioned, her tasks are on a separate task count, but once you do 5 wilderness tasks and start earning points, you get ridiculous amounts of points, especially at the milestones. Most of the tasks you get given are relatively fast as well if you're willing to use a cannon. When you bring along your cannon, I suggest at maximum taking 500 cannonballs. I suggest gearing up with 2 different types of setups, one for above 20 wilderness and one for below 20 wilderness. That's because above 20 wilderness, any untradeables that you lose on death will completely disappear and you can't get them back. This includes things like Void, the Fighter Torso, your Fire or Infernal Cape. So you need one setup below 20 wilderness with these untradeables and one above without. It's recommended to block or skip spiritual creatures or any tasks that you'd like to avoid, things like bears or ants, since they're quite slow tasks. Slightly slower way to farm point is by boosting with Turael. And by this I mean you do regular Slayer tasks at Turael until you reach one of the point milestones, and I'd suggest every 10th task. And then on that 10th task, you should do it at the highest point Slayer Master you can, which is most likely Konar. Since Turael's tasks take literally 2 to 5 minutes, when you use a cannon, you can do 9 tasks in a really short time. After that, you can do one bigger, long task for over 90 points. In the future, I do plan to make an in-depth Slayer point boosting guide, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Alright, so that's all of the different training styles. Now I have some Slayer tips and tricks that can be used throughout these training styles to better your slaying experience. When you're using a cannon in a single combat area, it attacks all of the monsters as if it's multi-combat if you're in a safe spot. This works really well in the Stronghold Slayer Cave if you use range. The Bones to Peaches tablets aren't only useful for bossing. You can take tablets along to Slayer tasks like Hellhounds in order to stay there forever, with there being a requirement of starting Dragon Slayer to use anti-dragon shields and potions. You can now avoid any dragon task by not starting the quest. This can help you to skip those really long blue, iron and steel dragon tasks at lower levels. When on a Turoth's or Kurask Slayer task, always use the Leaf-Bladed Battle Axe since it gives an invisible 17.5% damage and accuracy boost for both of these monsters. Also, despite these monsters only being vulnerable to leaf-bladed weaponry, you can still use a Saradomin Godsword and you get the hit points and prayer points based on what you would have hit. If you get assigned a Jad task and don't feel up for the challenge, you can go in and out of the fight caves without completing any waves to instantly skip your task. This doesn't use any Slayer points and it won't reset your task count. If you haven't imbued any rings or other imbuable items and you get black demons or trolls as a Slayer task, you can complete them in the Nightmare Zone AFKing with some of the available bosses. Lastly, if you're bursting or you're AFKing and you need to get the attention of a lot of monsters, the Din's Bulwark special attack works really well inside the Catacombs of Kurend especially, and it only uses 50% of your special attack. I'd like to briefly go over Duo Slayer, which is only available to regular accounts, so not Ironman. Basically, a side feature of an enchanted gem or any item with an enchanted gem in it, like a Slayer helm or ring, allows you to set up a partner. The partner with the highest Slayer level must get the Slayer task, and if the lower level player has unlocked the task, you'll both get exactly the same number of that Slayer monster to kill. You both don't share the same kill count, however. You both need to kill your own like a regular Slayer task, but it allows you to chat and play around with a friend with the same Slay task. You don't share any XP with your friend either, so it's a little bit underwhelming, but it's pretty awesome if you get boss tasks. Now for the final informative segment of this guide, Ironman Slayer tips. So many Slayer tasks are outstanding for Ironman in terms of gathering supplies, as well as unlocking new items and weapons like the Occult Necklace and the Abyssal Whip. So many Slayer tasks give great amounts of resources like seeds, herbs, bones, and alkables. Using a cannon is not often done by Ironmen simply due to the amount of time you have to spend making cannonballs. Higher level Ironmen can skip the tasks that give little to no resources or crappy XP rates. I mentioned earlier, from Slayer you can get the Herb Sack, one of the best essentials for an Ironman player in their journey to 99 herb lore. A lot of the information I've mentioned in this guide is relevant to Ironman as well, but the main thing that you need to take out of this is you should focus more on those tasks that give resources and skip the longer, worthless tasks. The final section of my Slayer guide is a quick summary. Overall, Slayer is a member's skill I highly recommend doing for a number of reasons like profit, combat training, and efficiency. If you missed any information, I really suggest going back and having a better look. There's also a written version of this guide available on theoatrix.net/guides, and I'll put it in the description when it's out. As a quick summary, there's 5 main types of ways you can train Slayer in my opinion. For beginners, for fast XP, for profit, for AFK training, and lastly for farming Slayer points. It's really up to you which styles you'd like to choose, but realistically you'll be swapping through these quite commonly on the way to 99. Anyways, that's my complete level 1 to 99 Slayer guide. Be sure to check out the brand new Slayer themed merch available on merch.theoatrix.net. New designs and products are added every single month. If you learned something interesting or enjoyed today's video, be sure to drop a like. I really do appreciate the support on these longer types of videos, especially if you made it this far in. Any questions, drop them down into the comments below, or you can join the Theoatrix Friends chat. I'm in there almost every day. Anyways, best of luck on your journey to level 99 Slayer, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.